What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Weekly. We got a jam-packed show for you today. We're talking about all things fantasy football, as well as news and notes from around the NFL. You know, best ball drafts, dynasty drafts, whether they're rookie or startups, they're sweeping the fantasy football landscape. And today we're going to be talking about all that, as well as, you know what, June's coming around the corner. And what the heck are we going to do when June hits finally? So before we get to that, let's hit the music. I swear to God, every time I listen to any of our songs here at Fantasy and Frames, I want to rock out.
That's what I'm doing.
Exactly, right? Except for Keith's song with Joe Matz on the Daily Fix. That I just want to like chill to. I just want to chill on the beach with a beer and just listen to that nonstop. So anyhow, like I said earlier, I'm Jorge B. Edwards. You can find me at Jorge B. Edwards on Twitter. With me today, we got Mr. Keith Fleming. Keith, welcome back to the show. How you doing, brother?
What's going on, guys? Had some car trouble today. Learned that, or actually was reminded, I am not a mechanic. Not somebody good with my hands. There's a reason.
Nor do you play one on TV.
Exactly. I don't care how many Holiday Inns Expresses I slept at the night before. But we got the battery changed, and it felt like a very big victory for me and my dad, who are both not those people, but doing well. How about you guys?
I'm doing all right. Kevin, how are you, man?
Doing great. I am deep as can get in the spreadsheets, updating my stuff that I'll be using for 2024. I believe I tweeted like a bunch of tweets today about random, like Alfred Blue. Like, remember Texans Alfred Blue?
Yeah.
And like looking up, who was it? It was Rashard Matthews and like, what was the other? It was a Jets, like Jeremy Curley. Guys,
Powell.
Yeah, Bilal Powell. That's one. Orleans Darkwa.
The Giants running back, Orleans Darkwa. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, deep in the weeds. Thanks, by the way, to Ben Gretsch, who I reached out to him to get some air yards data, and he delivered in a massive way to help me out, and definitely appreciate that. So stuff going back to like 2006, like, I don't think anybody needs that far back. Like, as much as I love to know what Bobby Engram did with the Seahawks in 2006, I think we're all good on
that. Nice. So a couple things. Keith, going back to what you were saying as far as changing your car battery, I will never forget. It's the year 2000. My dad was home from the hospital. He was still recuperating, and I was driving his Mercury Grand Marquis, which is kind of like the equivalent of like a Lincoln Town Car. And so it had a flat tire, and it was up to me, and I had no idea what I was doing, and it was raining outside, and like it was a scene, like if you remember from Thor, the very first Thor, where he tries to lift the hammer, and in slow motion he's trying to lift it. It's in the rain, and the rain's coming down, and it's very poignant, but he can't lift the hammer. Well, that was me trying to like unscrew one of the lug nuts. Just come on, Jorge, you can do it, and then finally it went. It was the biggest accomplishment of my life, automotively related, so I can relate to you there. Another thing I want to get into real quickly before we get into these topics, Keith, you had a very awesome tweet a couple of, I think it was last week or the week before, about how your father is a huge fan of Budweiser beer, and apparently in the greater Atlanta area, there is a lack of restaurants having that on standby, ready to go. So this is for your father. As soon as I saw that on Twitter, I was like, I'm going out to the grocery store. I'm getting myself a 24-pack of Budweiser because, you know, why not? And so let your dad know I'm with him in full support that Budweiser beer is still a good drinkable beer and should be at more and more restaurants.
I agree. Bud in a bottle. And it's not just, I'll admit, the metro Atlanta area. We were in DC, and he trekked our ass almost 2 miles by foot with my mother, who's not in the best physical shape. And I'm going, why are we going to this restaurant? As he sat down and ordered that Bud in the bottle. I go, now I know why he came here. And for the World Cup, they only had the aluminum bottles. If you would have seen his face,
Oh my goodness.
He was not a happy camper because, as he says, he wants a Budweiser in a brown bottle. So
I understand. Speaking of understanding, let's help the role understand over here on YouTube. Has a Dynasty question for us. And he says, how bad of an overpay is this? I traded Anthony Richardson and the 108 for the 101, which I used on Caleb. I had the DJ Moore stack and then later drafted Odunze, and A-Rich scares me. Kevin, let's start with you. What are your thoughts? Did he overpay Anthony Richardson the 108 for the 101 and DJ Moore? Odunze?
I don't mind that at all. I think you're getting more perceived safety, I guess. You're talking about Caleb, where now they're putting weapons around him with Keenan Allen, with Rome Odunze, with DJ Moore there, Komet. You've got, the makings of an offense that can be ascending with Caleb, obviously the first year of his rookie contract, number 1 pick overall. You've got 5 years of Caleb Williams, for all intents and purposes. So I'm fine with that. I think there's, the ceiling is higher, the floor is lower for A-Rich. So I'm fine with that as far as maybe setting yourself up for, the floor is much higher with Caleb Williams as far as keeping an asset for multiple years. You don't have to, injuries can happen to anybody, but for 108 and Anthony Richardson, I'm fine with that.
What about you, Keith? You feel like on the same page? You're okay taking a gamble with Caleb and having DJ Moore and Rome Odunze versus having Anthony Richardson in the 108?
Yeah, I would definitely rather have Caleb Williams. I'm as high on Richardson as just about anybody, but what has he really proven? He had 2 good games his first year, then he got hurt. He got hurt actually a couple of times. In college, it was rough. Florida was a mess. His talent was evident, but I think Caleb Williams is generational. I truly do. I think that there's a very good chance he's like the next guy, right? And in a dynasty league, I would much rather have that guy, and to just give away a guy that had 2 good games. I do really like him being in a Steichen offense. I think that he's, arguably one of the best play callers in the league, but I kind of like, getting Caleb Williams, and it's not like DJ Moore is a scrub either. You're going to be, I think, better this year with those 2 guys, and definitely better for the long haul.
All right. Well, I hope that answers your question, the role on YouTube. And for everybody else watching on Twitter right now, you know what? Head over to our YouTube page at Fantasy and Frames and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We'd really appreciate your support in building our following over there as well. Let's get into some news and notes. Some of the most recent news: Marvin Harrison Jr. signed his rookie contract. Man, these Arizona Cardinals, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, Kyler Murray's healthy. James Conner for the moment is healthy. I feel like, Keith, we'll start with you. Are these players on the Arizona Cardinals that unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, will have to pay up for in terms of when it comes to redraft season, just because of just how potent this offense could be? And do you feel comfortable with that?
I think you're probably right. I think McBride out of the group and maybe Murray are the guys that you won't have to. I think Harrison's really good. Don't get me wrong. I think it's absurd where he's going in best ball drafts and redrafts. You just look at the history. It's very rare for a number 1 guy to even put up top 5 or top 10 numbers. Jamar Chase has the best season, basically, I think all the way back to OBJ in fantasy, and that was the fit wide receiver number 5.
And he was a 4th round pick that year.
Right,
too.
Exactly. And so that was, a bargain, to where with Harrison, McBride was really good last year. He's already got a connection with him. I would think that they're going to try to run the ball with, obviously drafting the running back that they did. You got Connors, and Murray has had a history of being hurt. I don't know if Harrison is going to get enough targets, receptions, and ultimately touchdowns, probably really what it's going to, matter to be a top 5, top 10 wide receiver. And that's like the floor of where you have in the draft. I've seen him go as high as like the 4th, 5th wide receiver off the board in some of these best ball drafts. And I would rather have a guy that I know kind of what, their kind of floor is. And then out of the rookies, I would rather try to get like a Neighbors who, again, I think that team's going to be awful. And unlike Arizona, there's not a bunch of different options to where he's going to get peppered with targets, and where he's going, I think that's a little better. But I do think the Cardinals have a chance to be good. Like, they're actually a team, if I'm looking at over-under win totals, I really like the Cardinals. I think they're now up to 7 or 7.5. I still think they probably get to that. So it's a good wager to look at for a future.
Kevin, let me ask you a question. Last night on 4th and Frames, our longest running show, Keith, we had a early redraft mock draft, and Marvin Harrison went out of a 12-team league, went at the 110. Is that crazy, or can you kind of rationalize like, okay, well, he's going to be the primary target on this offense?
It's hard to rationalize that. Like, at that point, it's at that point you're getting a bit over your skis, because we're talking what is the margin of error that you have with drafting Marvin Harrison at 110? It's very little. He better be like CeeDee Lamb last year. He better be far and away the best wide receiver for you to hit a nut outcome. You're basically hoping as the 6th wide receiver off the board that he finishes wide receiver, 1 through 5. I mean, even anything after that, you're already taking a net loss at that. Yeah, I think that's a bit tough. I mean, when you look at the Arizona Cardinals, as far as what they've done, the big drop off in a lot of the team dropbacks went down by almost 80 from Cliff Kingsbury in 2022 to Drew Petzing and Jonathan Gannon in 2023. Snaps went down. They trended a little bit less in pace. They threw the ball a lot less as far as air yards. Targets were down. So you still got a bunch of guys with Michael Wilson, Zay Jones now, who I think Zay Jones, if he's coming for anybody, it's Michael Wilson. I think Dortch is a little bit insulated with what they have in the depth chart right now, but it's going to be very hard for me to see Marvin Harrison separate to the degree from Trey McBride as far as a target earner in year 1. Year 2 plus anything's on the table. But at least in year 1, when we see Kyler form or rapport with Marvin Harrison, to see him finish as wide receiver 1 through 5 in fantasy, it's a pretty tall order for me.
Did you see the troll job that the Arizona Cardinals social media team did last week, where it's like, you wanted it, here you go, and it's a slow motion vid of Kyler Murray doing a slow motion dump off to Marvin Harrison? Is like, there's the connection you were hoping for. You know what I mean? That was just pretty
dial up, baby. Slow that down.
Exactly. Man, my wife is the greatest. She literally just came downstairs to hand me this, which just very thoughtful. Love you, Mrs. Edwards.
There you go.
My wife, Mrs. Edwards. Not my, well, I guess both, but you get what I'm saying. Anywho, let's keep this going. Tim Patrick was seen back at Broncos practice this week doing some running. Look, the Broncos, what are we doing with Tim Patrick, if we're doing anything at all? Is he even best ball rosterable, Kevin?
We're doing something with Tim Patrick?
Exactly.
In 2024, the year of our Lord, who hasn't played a snap since what, January of 2022?
I mean, 2 back-to-back years of season-ending injuries. Like, is this even? Man,
that's a dart throw. I can't put serious capital into Tim Patrick. I want to see it before, because they've added serviceable guys. They added Josh Reynolds, Josh Reynolds is Josh Reynolds, but at least Josh Reynolds is he's like the most Denver Broncos wide receiver. Completely serviceable, will kill all the young dudes that want to be there, like Marvin Mims and probably Troy Franklin. Like, I could see him getting 90 to 100 targets. Tim Patrick, it's good to see him back. I can't put him in for anything more than a best ball. If you're really strolling the F down, 18th rounder. I'm not spending any more capital on that. I don't even know what his ADP is in best ball. That should tell you how much I've thought about Tim Patrick.
Speaking of the Denver Broncos situation here, we had one of our writers here, Courtney at Love Tractor 3, put out a rookie profile on Bo Nix and how he's such a good fit for the Sean Payton offense. How Sean Payton, this is the guy that he wanted. He didn't want JJ McCarthy. I won't tell you much more about that profile because you'll head over to fantasyandframes.com and check out that profile, or go to our YouTube page and watch her profile on Bo Nix. But, the Broncos, they brought in also Troy Franklin. Keith, let me ask you here. I know Troy Franklin was like a 4th round pick, and there's all sorts of correlations that people much smarter than I am have with, well, if he's in the 4th round, he has a percentage this likelihood of being a bust, or if he's in the 3rd round, he has this likelihood of being successful. For these two having such a rapport back in college, is this an underrated duo that maybe people should be paying a little bit more attention to, or is it way too early to tell that?
I mean, there's upside for sure. Nix is an experienced quarterback, even though he's a rookie because of his age, and just you look at the different systems he's played in. My big question, it's what I keep coming back with basically every Denver Bronco not named Javonte Williams, who I'm in. I think he's going to have a big bounce back this year, has Sean Payton lost his fastball? Because if Sean Payton is still the offensive mind that he was a decade ago, okay, now we're on to something, because we've seen Bo Nix in a very good system tailor-made to him at Oregon put up ridiculous stats and have success. He's going to need that help, though. And I do question, we saw it with John Gruden, we've seen it with a lot of these coaches, football passes you by, right? Like you kind of have to be involved. And I don't know. I don't know enough about Sean Payton if he's the kind of person that's going to adjust, because the game has really changed. I mean, if you look at defensive schemes, if you look at just the way teams are setting up their coverages, how many corners they have on the field, safeties, etc., it's really all about, can Sean Payton still be an elite play caller? If so, yeah, there's a ton of value. And I think those two guys, I think the Josh Reynolds call by Kevin is a great one. Josh Reynolds was very good from another quarterback who is extremely limited, right? Like, I know we're all in love with Jared Goff, but Jared Goff really only can do certain things well. And when you take those away, we've seen him have some just horrible games. I mean, there was a time people thought he was a complete bust. So
it's the Paul Heyman. It's the accentuate the positives and hide the negatives.
Exactly. Perfect.
I love it.
Also, Bo Nix, get ready to learn throwing to your running backs, buddy, because that's going to be happening a lot.
Yeah.
So Derek Brown over at Fantasy Pros, D-Bro, is a huge fan of Jaleel McLaughlin. Just because the efficiency metrics were there last year. He, in terms of efficiency, just was outperforming every other running back on the Denver Broncos. And he has a strong feeling, as well as others there in the fantasy space, that this could be a situation where if there is a type of open competition at the running back position, don't be surprised if Jaleel McLaughlin takes that role away from Javonte Williams, or at least has a larger role this year. And I look back at the snaps and the rushing attempts from last year. Here we have Javonte Williams, was it a year removed from his ACL, or was it? Yeah. Like, all the attempts were him. Like, there wasn't like a dual featured running back system like we had in New Orleans, where it was Ingram and Kamara. It was all Javonte Williams rushing attempts, regardless of efficiency metrics. And so I'm just curious, Keith, you brought up a very good point that you're all in on Javonte. Kevin, what would you say as far as your opinion on either running back? And are they worth the investment draft capital wise? Obviously, McLaughlin you're going to get later on in your drafts, but are you paying a 3rd round pick, when it comes time to redraft, or even for best ball for Javonte? Or are you letting that go into 4 or 5?
Rounds? At least at best ball right now, he's going later and later.
Yeah.
Like, he's going almost way too late, where that's a guy that, year 2 coming off of his injury, that he's going to be like the guy that if you're targeting upside still, that's a young player that can catch passes. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't be in on a guy like Javonte Williams. And then you can also get, Jaleel McLaughlin, who is in the top quarter of running backs in yards per route run last year. I mean, Samaje Perine, I feel like he's a cut candidate right now with Estime there as well. I mean, they're not going to be carrying 4 running backs in game day. I don't think that's going to be happening. Unless Estime just cannot pick up a playbook for whatever reason, which is possible. I mean, we've seen it before where guys can just either not get the pass protection or just not, get completely shut out by guys. So we must, kind of adjust for that kind of scenario.
Looking at you, Trey Sermon, you son of a bitch. I'm still not over that.
Right. We had 2 weeks, 2 Trey Sermon references. You got to love it. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah. So the Denver run, especially as much as, with Joe Lombardi, with, Bo Nix, a guy that's going to not a lot of wide receiver competition. It's basically like the New Orleans of old where Cortland Sutton ain't going to be slant boy, but there's all these other receivers that can like chip in when needed, like Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Brandon Johnson, Troy Franklin as well too. So the running backs are going to get peppered. And if something happens to one of those running backs, you could be possibly looking at Javonte Williams. If he's healthy, if he's like one of the 2 backs standing, could have like 80, 90 targets.
Yeah, I wonder who's going to be the Willie Snead of this Denver Broncos passing attack or receiving core. We shall find out. Last bit of news, and it's totally biased. There was reports coming out of practices in Washington that Cliff Kingsbury is trying to implement a very fast-paced offense, no huddle offense here. Who do you think, Keith, that benefits more, a Brian Robinson or an Austin Eckler? And does that kind of shift your evaluation as far as where you would draft either of them?
I would much rather have Brian Robinson. I'm a believer in him. I keep saying this to people. He had the year that he had last year, and he got shot. Okay?
I think we're willing to give him a pass for that.
Right?
We don't give passes for like anybody, but the dude getting shot and then coming back.
Rushing back, and he was very effective. And what I know, because I'm a DFS guy and I slammed him a lot down the stretch, he was involved in the passing game a ton. He had some huge receiving totals the last like 6-7 weeks of the season. And again, I'm not saying that Eckler won't be used. I think he will, but if you're asking me again, who's going to get more touches in 2024 with what I saw out of Brian Robinson last year and what I saw out of Austin Eckler, I think it's going to be Brian Robinson, and probably Eckler's going to go, all the way into August before. So you're actually spending less capital taking Robinson than you are taking the bigger name in Eckler.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, I totally agree with the Brian Robinson take. Like, I don't think Eckler is going to end up being like the Gibson at all. I mean, I know the coaches everybody was saying, oh, we love Antonio Gibson every single year. And then we find out during the season that it's like everybody hates Chris. Everybody hates Gibson. But they really hate Gibson because now he's not there. I mean, right. I don't know if I really hate Eckler, but from what we saw from Eckler last year, he did not look like anything that we've seen from Austin Eckler the previous couple of years. And maybe that's because of injury. That's certainly a factor too, but we're looking at an almost 30-year-old running back that
lot of
mileage. He's pretty much a receiving back at this point. They've got a Brian Robinson that can eat carries. And I'm fine drafting Eckler in the double-digit rounds, but he's going way too high to where you're talking about a back that's on the downslope of his career. That's like he's J.D. McKissick, but you have to draft him the 8th round. Like,
wow.
What are you doing?
Okay, that is a comparison right there, J.D. McKissick.
Fancy McKissick.
Ironically, also a former Washington Commander, so that is well done by you, sir. All right, let's get into some best ball topics here. The NFL schedule has been announced. Drafts are kicking into high gear. And I don't know if you two gentlemen realize this, but you're on another show after this one, the Fantasy and Frames Draft Show, where you're going to be, ironically, doing a Superflex best ball draft. And so I figure for those listening and those watching out here, which, by the way, thank you very much for your patronage. Now that we know the NFL schedule, now that we know matchups, what exactly is the way to prepare for these drafts going forward? I know that's a very open blanket question, but that gives us more to talk about. And so therefore, let's just go with it. Kevin, let's start with you. What's the most important piece to take away from the NFL schedule being released when it comes to planning your best ball drafts?
Yeah, so if you're doing the 12 team fully contained leagues that aren't in tournaments, I think you certainly have to think less about the schedule and really just maybe thinking a little bit more about correlation and thinking about you don't have to go super heavy on like correlation and stacks and everything like that. But if you're doing like the puppies and best ball manias and Pomeranians and the Finnish Spits and all these other dog breeds that Underdog loves to put out for tournaments, I do think that like week 16, week 17 correlation is very important as far as, Davis Maddock does say we're all going to fucking lose anyway, right? But in the event that you don't, in the fact that you can get a team across into week 16, week 17, it basically turns into a DFS contest where you are having these correlations that maybe, looking at like week 17 right now, the Chargers play the Patriots. That's not a very sexy matchup right now, but if you're drafting late and you have, if you have a Ladd McConkey and then you have Drake May, Javon Baker, like you don't think about that as possibly being something that you could win with. But, a couple years ago, people didn't think they'd be winning with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Rashad Penny either with that Detroit-Seattle game. A lot of people last year didn't think Sam Laporta, CeeDee Lamb, Sam Laporta, Jake Ferguson, guys like that last year, didn't think those would be like winning combinations. Jaden Reed, Mike Evans the year before, ping-ponging like guys like, taking Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and having them kind of ping-pong week 16 and week 17 weeks, like 30-point weeks in half PPR. Like people don't think about these correlations, whether they're week 16, week 17, or just stacking up a team. I think those things are very important to think about now with best ball. And I talked about it in our draft stream last week, where I think if you're starting at the beginning of the draft, you have to think about like the correlation a little bit less in the beginning. And then as you keep going through like round 8, 9, 10, and further down in the draft, you think about it more, where these combinations of players can turn the tide for you should you be able to get into these group stages in advancing.
So, it's funny that you bring up the week 17 correlation and whatnot. And I guess, somebody, let's say they ask you the question, well, the regular season for best ball tournaments normally ends at week 14. So shouldn't 14 be kind of like the emphasis there just because you have to make it to the playoff rounds? Or is that something that is just not you want to plan for the championship and not really plan for making it into the playoff rounds there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm as, I throw risk and caution to the wind as far as I'd rather finish last than finish fourth because it's basically the same thing anyway. So you're
at first, sure last.
Ricky, but the esteemed Ricky Bobby with that nugget of wisdom. But yeah, I'm not super thinking about week 14. I want to be able to optimize my team. Obviously, you want the best players and you got to have some luck too. You got to be able to have some early season hits. You want to be able to have, maybe some more rookies or younger players as they grow into roles and can help you down the stretch. Like Raheem Mostert was just was just so awesome last year as a 14th, 15th round pick. And he helped you throughout the whole season. But, you can get guys like Adam Thielen. I've talked so much shit about Adam Thielen, but weeks 1 through 6, Adam Thielen definitely had some best ball teams in first place. So, I mean, those can help you. And then if you get some late season upside as well with rookies or like players that come on late, like a Rashee Rice, that kind of combination combined with correlation. I mean, you're not going to have everything in every draft. I mean, we're talking about how many best ball mania teams are being drafted, 4 million or something like that. So you're hoping you're one out of whatever, but what if you want to at least be set up instead of having dead teams and dead roster spots, which that also helps with the draft where, thinking about who can help your team versus drafting Durham Smythe now.
Oh my gosh. I guarantee you, one of our guys here at Fantasy and Frames, Chris Burns, is saying right now, how dare you say anything negative about Durham? Keith, let me ask you a question here in regards to a very good point that Kevin just brought up regarding rookies and planning them and drafting them on your team. If you were going to fill your roster with rookies that you're hoping to come on later in drafts, would they be mostly wide receivers or running backs, or is it a combo?
I think it's a mixture. I mean, I am not a best ball expert. Don't claim to be. I'm a DFS guy, but I have, in the limited best ball experience that I have, do it very similar to what I do with DFS. The guys that I spend on, so instead of being a salary, it'll be capital in this case. I want to know how many targets, how many rush attempts, like what is their target share? What is their, ball carrying percentage going to be? I want to spend the capital on the known commodities. And then once we get out of those known commodities, you take nothing but home run shots, to Kevin's point, because what good is it going to do if you play it safe? And I'm not saying that you should take values when they're there. Like if there's somebody like Javonte Williams, who we were just talking about, who I think is going to end up having a lot of carries, going to catch passes, all that, and he's going way too late. Yeah, scoop up a known commodity like that. But with the rookies, I don't care if they're wide receivers, especially like I've liked, and just what I've messed around this year is if you spend the capital on a tight end early, I like then taking one or two of these, high upside rookie tight ends late. So it doesn't really matter, especially depending on how many flex positions and the way the roster is, conspired, whether it's running back, wide receiver, tight end. I think they're all a home run. The quarterback would be the one position that, I mean, if you're relying on a rookie QB, it's probably going to be a tough season anyway. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not some potential there, and guys like Bo Nix and obviously Jaden Daniels and, those guys, Caleb Williams, obviously, but I just feel like that if you're looking, for like Michael Penix, who knows how many games he's going to start or going to play. And I would be looking mostly at running backs, receivers. And then obviously the big thing is the scoring format, because obviously if it's tight end premium, I'd probably lean a little bit more to some of those tight ends late. If it's, full PPR, I would definitely be hitting either wide receivers or running backs that I know are going to catch passes, like third down backs, guys that are, one opportunity away from being both the lead back and the pass catching back.
Yeah, and with guys like, would I'd rather have 7.2 points from Tyler Boyd that doesn't hit my lineup, or possibly get 21 points from Jermaine Burton like in week 17? Like that's what I'm looking for. I don't want there's safety as far as your like fantasy points go and what's going to hit your lineup. That's like kind of what you have your top guys for, because that's like the low end outcome. That's kind of what you're looking for. You're not hoping that like Allen Robinson gets in your lineup with 5. If Allen Robinson gets in your lineup with 5.6 points, you are sniffing no money. But yeah, as far as like quarterbacks go, like obviously you had CJ Stroud, and some of the signs were there that could be San Francisco light, but that's the luck of like fantasy. Like, who saw CJ Stroud coming? Because anybody who said they did, like to this degree, I want to know what you're huffing.
Or I want to know what the lottery's numbers are going to be next week. Because
right. I'm not putting lottery numbers on not taping over the end of the news to get my lottery tickets and putting it in there. I've done that before. It's a prank. I think everybody has though.
Sure, of course. Got Tootsie Pop 6 here in the YouTube chat.
Hey,
what's
Rachel.
going on? Let's shift over to some Dynasty talk real quickly here. Keith, congratulations. Now we can talk about some rookies because they have landing spots. And so now I know you're a big person when it comes to like, I don't really want to talk about upside of this till I know where they are. Well, now we know where they are. And OTAs are going on and voluntary mini camps are going on. And then in a couple weeks, we'll have the mandatory mini camps. And when it comes to Dynasty Fantasy Football, rookie drafts and startup drafts, they're really taking off. This may sound like a basic question, but I guarantee you there's probably somebody out there or a group of people out there who still put stock in, helmets, shoulder pads, and shorts news that comes out of their favorite teams' reports every day. And, at a certain point, that can't help but mess with your mind a little bit. What should people be focusing on in terms of dynasty drafts now that should influence them of where they take players? The the news that they're hearing now, or what they're using to evaluate players previously before the draft?
Again, for me, it's opportunity. I'm looking at, like, for instance, Lad McConkey, who, huge on him for years, honestly, at this point, but definitely heading into the draft. And then, I mean, you just want to talk about a dream scenario. He's going to a location where 65% of the guys that Justin Herbert has thrown passes to, receiving yards, and touchdowns since he's been an NFL quarterback are gone. So that's obviously a really good situation. Jonathan Brooks is like the big winner out of the running backs, because as much as I love Chuba Hubbard, and I'm a Chuba Hubbard truther, got to won several dynasty teams, I think at the end of the day, Brooks, that's a good location where all these other backs, yeah, they can end up being the guy, but probably something's going to happen to where it feels like Brooks, if everything plays out the way I believe it will, at worst, he will be 1B to 1A from day one. So what I'm looking for is just how much opportunity. And so it depends on like what team they went to. A name that Kevin mentioned that I'm actually getting higher and higher on is Jermaine Burton, because we've seen like Boyd, who is somebody who has these big monster games. I actually think Burton is an upgrade on Boyd. So if it's a best ball draft, Joe Burrow's healthy. We've seen that they drafted, I'm telling you, a monster at tackle who is going to help protect Joe Burrow. Obviously, it looks like they're going to go into the season with Chase and Higgins. There's another guy that, like, I could see him in best ball, especially late in drafts, be somebody because of the upside of him having these big weeks, to, as Kevin talked about, that will win you weeks or win the season. So I really it's just like with DFS for me. I just want to know what is available there. And if you're looking at a team that, for instance, like Miami, right, is a perfect example where so many targets go to the two guys that are back, and Tyreek Hill and Waddle. I just, like, I can't get excited about any other pass catcher in that offense, at least not unless it's just a last second, dart in a fantasy draft, or excuse me, a dynasty draft where I'm looking.
Nope, you gotcha.
But I'll expand on that as far as what you're looking for. Like, go follow, if you're on Twitter, follow 32 Beat Writers, because that is a very, very good resource as far as, kind of aggregating everything that people are talking about with these, OTAs and training camps and stuff like that. And I look at that almost specifically for like running back stuff, because look, the thing you don't think about is the thing that gets these players on the field: pass blocking. Like, you don't think about that as like, oh, well, how's that going to help me in fantasy? They got to get on the field. And if they can earn pass protection snaps, that means that's going to translate, because the coaches and coordinators trust the player. Look at Isaiah Pacheco, who came on 2 years ago and was getting rave reviews from like everybody as far as his pass protection. You have an ambiguous running back room with Jerick McKinnon and Ronald Jones and Deneric Prince and guys like that, and it ended up being Pacheco, and he's still undervalued in drafts. Like, that dude should be a second rounder, and somehow he's like a late third, and I don't get it, because all he has behind him is CEH. But if you're looking at like, I want to know how this Miami backfield is going to shake out, because we got Mostert, we've got HN, but we also got Jalen Wright and Savon Ahmed and Jeff Wilson, guys that could be traded. Tell me you couldn't see like Jeff Wilson being traded to like the Giants and completely just screwing everything up with Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy and Eric Gray, or like getting traded to the Texans or something like that. And maybe Jeff Wilson finds something and challenges Joe Mixon. And then we're talking about a great offense where now we have two running backs to worry about. So this definitely with the beat reporters and stuff like that, when it involves running backs, I mean, me as a zero RB guy, I want to find the next guy over everybody else. That's a great way to do it, where you can see who's getting, not just like, oh, he ran a carry against a bunch of tackling dummies and he looks great out there in, his shorts and GPS machine. He ran 21 miles an hour. No, I want to be able to see, what these guys are doing, who's getting consistent like camp buzz and actually given, meaningful touches in preseason. So that's what I look at.
That's a very good point. As we're getting close to wrapping up the show, I know we got to get there. You guys got to get to your next studio pretty soon, because you'll have the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Draft with Stacey Perez coming up soon. But there is something that I think is important that we should all start talking about, and I'm sure we'll keep talking about it as the month goes on. We're about to hit the doldrums of fantasy football season, folks, the dreaded month of June, where not a lot goes on. And
the points don't matter, and
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like,
everything's made up, and the points don't matter.
Exactly. But that being said, we're all fantasy football degenerates. We all like learning and doing things and talking about fantasy football. So, Keith, let me start with you. As a content consumer in the month of June, okay, what is something that you would find interesting to actually hear about or to learn about? Just shooting off the cuff. Nothing super in depth if you don't want to go down that route.
I take the month off. I'm going to play a lot of golf. I'm going to watch a lot of golf. And I'm going to probably get really into wrestling because that's usually right around Money in the Bank time. Ooh. So I feel like that it's important if you're a content creator, if you obsess over these things, to kind of shut your brain off every once in a while. And that is a perfect time to do it because nothing is really happening. I do believe there's an area that you hit that you overthink, overanalyze, overindulge yourself. And I think it's really healthy that if you have another hobby or you have something else, just kind of shut it off for a few weeks. You're not going to miss anything. Yeah, there might be some Twitter beefs you want to fly into or whatever. Somebody saying this wide receiver is going to be great, and this guy saying no, he's going to suck. You can see that when you come back. So take the breath off. Mental health is good. It's good to get out of your bubble.
Kevin, what about you as a content consumer? What are your thoughts here?
You mean to say you don't want to know if this is going to be good or bad for Amon-Ra St. Brown? You don't want that kind of content? I mean, I love it just as much. Like now's the perfect time because, just even not even football related things. I mean, Scott Fishbowl is starting, to get going with, the live drafts and stuff like that. A lot of the charity leagues are starting to kind of ramp up too. And that's the stuff I look for, like the Fantasy Cares Eliminators, and all these great fantasy football charitable events that, it's a good time to kind of maybe get with some drafts, especially the Fantasy Cares Eliminators, getting your feet wet with, oh, this guy's going here, and oh, I can expect this and that, and that's fine. But I take my month off in like March because I check in for the free agency, but I'm not a college guy. I don't care about running in shorts. We talked about this, but yeah, I mean, if you got to take a break, I'm taking a little bit of a break here, but I do it because I have a spreadsheet that I want to try to get completed before the 2024 season. I've only got 3 months and a week to do that. So that's personally what I'm doing. But like, there's still great content out there from, obviously look at Fantasy and Frames. We've got a ton of content that's, on the site. Go check it out right now. Well, maybe not right now, but like after the draft stream, go check it out.
Very good.
But yeah, I don't want to drive our public away, certainly, but
no. But like, one of the things in kind of segueing off of the content that we'll have at fantasyandframes.com and as well as on our YouTube channel is I look at this time as a good time as a content creator. You know what? My thought process is, well, July hits, then August, so we're going to be in Scott Fishbowl season. We're going to be in redraft mode, which when that switch is turned on, that's going to take an adjustment in and of itself. Yep. But I feel like as a content creator, this is the perfect time to experiment with how you present content, how you research for content, where you go for content information, to really just hone in and improve your process of how you not only create content, research content, but also present the content. And if I say content one more time, I'm going to slap myself. So
shenanigans.
Shenanigans. Where's that place with all the goofy shit on the wall? You mean Super Troopers reference there for those who don't get it. And if you don't get it, you better go watch that movie after the
goddamn
draft.
Liter of cola.
Yeah. Exactly.
Team Ramrod. You get it?
Yeah. Ramrod. Come on, man. Anyhow, meow. All right, that's the last one, I promise. as a content consumer, believe it or not, I wanted, you follow all these people, on the various platforms and whatnot. As a content consumer, I'll if I have a rapport with a particular person that I'm following, while I enjoy their content, I kind of want to get to know their personality a little bit more, because I think that endears you to, the person themselves, as well as, the content they produce. And so I think this gives you a good opportunity to kind of go through your following, button and kind of start purging a little bit, of the fat off of who you're following, because you really want to hone in on the people that, you like and you enjoy, who they are, and that take the time to actually interact with you, on top of it, digesting their content. So that's how I view things in terms of being a content creator and a content consumer. For those of you out there, over on our YouTube page, drop a note in the comment section. Let us know what you like, when it gets to the month of June. Let us know what you don't like. Let us know what you want to see more of and hear more of, and hear less and see less of. Very curious to crowdsource this thing, because obviously not for selfish reasons here, but at the same time, we're all content consumers of something, and obviously we're content creators here of fantasy football content. So we're all in this together. As Joe Bryant from Football Guys says, we're all in this together. We win together, we lose together, and we're just here to help you have a better time playing fantasy football and talking about fantasy football. So with that being said, let's just wrap this up this week and talk about what we're doing this weekend. Kevin, let's start with you.
I will just drop real quick. If you want to know more about some of the content creators that make up fantasy football, go check out Kevin Murray's Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. I know Jorge was on there. Myself, Nate Markham also on there. So
damn, what a shot to me. Screw you, Kevin. So 2/3 of the guys have been on there, but I'm not. Thanks.
Are you? Were you on there? I scrolled through.
No, I'm saying I'm not.
Well, you gotta talk to him, man.
Yeah.
Don't kill the messenger here.
Kevin.
Look, I can only run so fast.
Fired.
Shit.
I thought he's talking about Kevin Murray for a second. Never mind. Okay.
Well, no, you got to talk to Kevin Murray about that if you want to be on there. But yeah, I mean, just who's who of fantasy football. You can go check that out. The Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Kevin Murray, awesome dude. There's hundreds of videos, so go check that out. Certainly. As far as what I'm doing, I'll be doing a draft stream after this, where maybe I'll draft some quarterbacks in Superflex. I don't know. We'll see what it feels like. But other than that, I'm just kind of working a little behind the scenes right now, getting some stuff. I mean, now is a perfect time to get stuff ready and kind of plan content out too for 2024. So as a content creator, that's what I'm doing, and trying to help myself out as best as I can to get more content out to the masses. So that's what I'll be doing for probably the next few months. But obviously you can find me here. You can find me doing the draft stream with Stacy and Keith and Erica and Rich. So that's what I'm doing.
Nice. Keith, what about you? What are you doing this weekend?
Gonna do some golf, family, a little bit of the pool, just hanging out. Plan to have a good, relaxing weekend.
Very nice. Yeah. I don't know what I'll be doing. I think I'll be chopping up some videos, some YouTube shorts, and obviously something fantasy and frames related, but hopefully I'll be able to get out there and enjoy and touch grass, as the kids say. So with that being said, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to Fantasy Football Weekly. Next week, we will be complete with Britt Flynn finally being able to join us again. I don't know if you saw night one of the NFL draft coverage, but she was phenomenal, hilarious. We can't wait to have you back, Britt. Hope you're having a great time. So for Keith Fleming, I'm Jorge Edwards, Kevin Tompkins, excuse me. We will see you all next week.